Anela Lineham, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Andy.
It's
a
so
pleasure.
it's so great to have you. It's been interesting. Up until about a half hour ago, I'd never met you. I've met everybody else at the Human Garage, it seems like. Maybe not everyone, but a lot of people. I've been interacting with everyone there for like 3 months, and to have not met one of the founders. You know, Gary references you all the time. Oh, and he references you like I know you, and I haven't. So this is really exciting for me.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure. Most of the time I'm behind the scenes, making sure everything is done so that when we do come outside, we have all things taken care of.
Right.
I mean, we have 56 employees right now and
God,
lots
wow.
of stuff going on behind the scenes.
That's so much. Yeah.
It is. And we have grown fast and big in last 3 years, from 3 employees to 56.
So 3 years ago, you had 3 people.
Just 3 people.
You, Gary, and who was the third?
Sarah.
Wow.
And now it's just the family has grown so much.
Yeah.
And it takes so much stuff behind the scenes to be done and taken care of. I didn't even know, just making sure all the little things are in check.
How did you, go take us back a little bit? Like how did you get to be part of this
Human Garage?
Yeah, the
creation.
Human Garage. Like what? Because I know you have a lot of experience in and we'll get into all that.
Mm-hmm.
But how did the Human Garage come about, and how did? Yeah.
Yes.
I don't even know how to really ask it. There's so many elements.
So many elements. Well, I can go back to when I was 6 years old, growing up in Bosnia. I was a gymnast, and my whole life I can remember like waking up in the middle of the night as a 6-7-year-old kid and thinking how I'm going to change the world with a movement. I didn't understand at the time what that meant, but I just knew that the world needs movement, and it just didn't make any sense. But I pursued gymnastics, rhythmic gymnastics, and athletics my whole life. And even during the war in Bosnia, I was just so fixated on this idea that I just want to teach, I want to educate, I want to expose, this movement to the world. And I didn't even know that this seed was planted long time ago. So that was something that was my faith, and also understanding that it has to manifest itself one day. So no matter what I was doing, that was always the focus and the idea of, I want to have a place where we can help people transform through movement, through nutrition and awareness, spirituality, energy work. And I wanted to have that place.
So you had this intuition at 6 years old?
Yes.
Because you weren't even old enough to know yourself what even,
exactly,
like any of that. That's really interesting.
I look back now and I just think about those days and nights. And, when I was training, my gym was maybe 4 or 5 miles away from my house. And I still remember the days, it was sunny. It was cold and snowing and miserable. And I still had to go to these trainings late at night. 7, 8-year-old kid.
You were doing it outside of school.
Outside of school, yes. And I was just so passionate. Nothing
you
would
had
stop
to walk
me.
there?
I had to walk there.
So it's like this story. When I was a kid, I had to walk 4 miles through the snow to get to the bus, or to go to the gym.
But nothing stopped me. And I still remember those walks, and almost like talking to myself about like empowerment, and kind of like I wasn't by myself, that there was always a presence of something guiding me through this process. And there were days when I was really scared and terrified. But I said, this determination for me to train, it was a passion, it was fire, it was something that I couldn't just explain. And I used to ask myself, where is it coming from and why? The same drive and the same passion actually saved my life in Bosnia. During the war, because of training, because of the way my brain or mind was developed through training, I was able to make certain decisions that were a matter of like life or death, not only for myself, but for so many people at the same time. The reason why, I'm mentioning this is how important is sports and being active and engaging children early. It's not just a physical education, but almost it's like giving survival tools. So you never know when you're going to need it. But when you need it, there's something in the brain that happens that it's wired differently.
Right.
Making those decisions, what really matters is, am I going to cross the street now because I know snipers are everywhere? Or should I wait 5-10 minutes? Or how I'm going to run between the buildings? This is something that I was faced when I was 19 years old.
Wow.
And I always contribute my survival to being physically active and developing my mind to think in such a way that I could predict certain things, or how certain people are going to react in certain situations. So pretty much I think I was wired for survival my whole life.
Yeah, right.
Wait,
so I got to ask you, how long was this time period that you were part of the war, and how long was the war, and how did you leave? What was that experience?
Well, after finishing high school, I went to London for a year just to, study. And then I decided to go back to continue my education, to go back to Sarajevo. And I passed all my exams for University for Physical Education, even though my parents were, why do you want to do that? You could be a doctor, you could be anything you want. But I said, do you want to be a school teacher? I mean, a physical education teacher. I said, no, you don't understand. There's a bigger picture in what I'm going to do in the future. So I was at the university in Sarajevo in 1992 when the war started, 1992. And I was there for probably 5 months. I worked for UN as a translator for a short period of time, but at that time I was able to go to front lines and to most dangerous places. I had a bulletproof jacket at the time, so I work with the government officials, taking care of refugees, making sure that everybody is safe. But things turned to be really ugly at the time, and I was forced to get out. But I have to also say, even during this period, I was just constantly saying, this is not my war. This is not part of me. All I wanted to do is teach and train and work out and, go to university and study. But that was taken away from me.
You're right.
Because of intuition or something that I had inside of me, I knew that I would leave Bosnia in 92. But I had my passport in my bra. I had a little bit of money. I kind of no matter what happens, I will be able to escape. So this is another survival intuition, I guess. I don't know how to explain it.
You what do you mean you escaped? What did you have to?
So
you couldn't get out of the country?
Nobody could get out of the country.
Really?
It was no man's land. It was really, really, really hard. You didn't know who was fighting who at the time. You just know that civilians were dying, being shot and killed everywhere.
So it was confusion.
It was a lot of confusion, uncertainty, darkness, death. What we're seeing right now, what's happening in Syria and what's happening in Iraq, what's happening in, in countries like that. So it was a genocide. So many people, innocent people died. Before Syria was Bosnia.
Right.
And I'm sitting here 24 years later, first time talking about it. As much as I try to push it back and forget about it, it's a big part of me. So the mission and Human Garage is, it's all the dreams, all the tears, all the trauma, everything that I had to go through to become who I am today is built in Human Garage. So yes, I am behind the scenes. I end up marrying an amazing, amazing person. That too was a part of my plan. Again, there's something magical happening, and I believe that we all have this ability to manifest our dreams. As long as we kind of have a strong faith and believe in that's possible. I remember writing it down constantly, you know, what I want. And Human Garage is on every page of my journals. And
what did you call it? It was just
a vision of a place where people will gather, and how we're gonna, you know, I wanted to save the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even during the war in Bosnia, I didn't understand what fear meant. So running from one building to another building to bring just water or some food for civilians and people that were hiding in the basements of the hospital, running from one building to another building. It was, again, question, like, you don't know, snipers were everywhere. So
and who did you know who was fighting who?
Mm-hmm.
As a civilian?
Yes.
I mean, did you know who was where?
Right. Well, it's interesting, this conflict in Bosnia. It's you have Serbs, like Orthodox
Yep.
Christians, you have Croatians, which are Catholics, and then you have Bosnians that are Muslims. And pretty much Bosnia is a melting pot. We all live together. We have neighbors. I dated a Serbian man. Pretty much we didn't have this division before the war.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, in a really short period of time, something happened that, you know, your neighbors turn against neighbors.
Right.
So, yeah, everybody, you know, like, it's really complicated to even begin to explain the conflict. I mean, that's why the world doesn't understand what's happening in Syria, doesn't understand what's happening around the world, because there are no words to explain.
Right.
How does a human being turns against another human being?
Yeah, it's hard to... I mean, I think about my neighborhood, my street.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's hard to imagine that happening. You know, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think the closest thing we have in the United States is maybe the Civil War.
Yes.
You know, that was less neighbor versus neighbor. It was
Mm-hmm.
more, you know, north
Mm-hmm.
versus
South.
south. But there were families that were ripped apart. There were, you know, you had brothers
Exactly.
that were north and other brothers that were south. And
Right. And imagine families like a husband and wife.
Yeah, right.
One is Serbian, one is, Muslim. And then you have children that
Right.
are part of this union.
What do they do?
Exactly. How do you, you know, it's just because of your name or your belief system, you know, it meant if you're going to live or you're going to die.
Was there civilian, were they targeting civilians? I mean,
Yes.
as part of this?
Yes. It was a Serbian army or Yugoslavian army. Some, you know, that was entity that everybody invested, you know, they would take money from your paycheck to be donated to the army fund.
Yeah.
And so that was Yugoslavian army that actually turned against people.
Right.
So here you are, a civilian, and you have to get armed and you have to protect your family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, as a civilian, you don't think about those things.
Yeah, no, right, right.
How do you,
not.
you know, like, can't even, you know, like a normal human being has I can't even imagine what it means to take a gun or to take a weapon to harm another human being.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was very difficult to understand that how somebody can hurt another human being.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a quite traumatic experience.
How did you get
me.
out? How did you end up leaving?
Yeah, I was, there was one bus in 4 years that left a town that we were refugees, even in Bosnia. And I remember my dad was saying, you have to leave. Because I was ready to kind of like step in and get into, join the army or do something. I just couldn't sit there and wait for something to happen. I said, I gotta do something.
Mm-hmm.
So my father just went down on his knees and, start crying. And he says, you have to leave. I said, I can't, I don't want to leave you. But he's like, if you stay, then, and if you do something crazy, if they find you, they're going to kill everyone with the same last name as ours.
Right.
So once he said that, I said, okay. So I listened to him. I got on that bus, and I remember it took us 3 days to get to Croatia, to Zagreb. And I just didn't know if I'm ever going to see my parents again. I had no money. I had nothing. I just had a backpack.
Was it just you? No brothers and sisters?
Just me. I was the only one that left at the time. I left my brother, my mom, and my dad behind.
Okay.
So 4 years actually. That was beginning of my journey.
Wow.
I went back to London. I still had friends, and they got me a ticket. They organized the whole thing, like to take me and to help me through this transition. But it was interesting, that was an interesting journey. I remember being refugee in London, and we had a small a room in a hostel just around the Buckingham Palace.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no money, but I had to go get a job. So I remember walking by the Buckingham Palace very early morning, and it was quiet. And I just looked and I said, what life, here I am, almost living next door to the Queen.
Right.
And here
all the money in the world.
All the money in the world. And I'm a refugee, and I don't know what's happening in the world. I don't know what's going to happen to my family.
Right.
But there's this fire inside of me that I just knew that I had to make a difference. I always felt that there was this invisible force helping me through this process, kind of guiding me through it all. So maybe we can say, guides, or my higher self, or God, we can call it whatever, this energy, but definitely I can say that it was here. It was constantly with me. Right. And it would warn me if there was a danger. It would, say, yes, go or stay or move or don't move. So I contribute a lot to that energy, and I'm looking back and I say part of it is now human. This is why Human Garage is the way it is, because it's a collection of all these energies. Every single person that is at Human Garage has a unique story.
Right.
Pretty much like survival. You made it, and through this journey, I mean, they have been lots of trials and tribulations. Definitely not an easy life. I can say, I'm 46 now, and I have to say that first time in my life, I feel like I'm present. I'm safe. Talking about post-traumatic stress. It took me a long time to kind of like get over or to heal myself. And also, I'm grateful that Gary has appeared in my life. Mm-hmm. Pretty much when I was at the end of my rope. 24 years of survival, being a single mom. I have a 24-year-old son as well.
Oh, wow.
Raising him.
So wait, that started right in the middle of this?
Well, in London, yes.
Right.
That's where I met my first husband. Mm-hmm. And another, it was so interesting because even I was in London, I said, okay, I want to go to New York. I wanted to help my parents at the time. London wasn't taking any more refugees. So constantly in my mind is like, I got to help my parents. So I said, I got to go to New York. And so I worked in a Italian restaurant in Soho in London. And I remember sitting one night and looking at this photograph of New York City. And Frank Sinatra was singing New York, New York. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, I think I got to go to New York. The next thing is maybe like a week from that, I met my first husband who was from New York. And the first thing when he met me, he said, I'm gonna marry you.
Wow.
I said, okay, well, if
how do you respond to that?
Right. I said, well, if it's meant to be, he asked me, give me your phone number. I said, well, if I meet you somewhere else, I'll give you my phone number. So I'm thinking that's going to be the end of it. I'm never going to meet him again, and I'm just going to let him go easy. So a couple days later, I was walking down Oxford Street, and I bumped right into him.
Wow.
Hundreds and thousands of people on the street, and it was him. And he said, well, you promised if you meet me somewhere else, you're going to give me your phone number.
Wow.
So I said, sure.
That's weird.
I know. It's just a lot of weird things. Yeah. We would need a couple of podcasts to really get into it deeper.
We'd make a big list.
Exactly. And then he said, I'm going to be back in a week, and I'm going to bring my mother, and I'm going to bring rings, and we're going to get married.
On that
just
second
like
meeting on the street?
Second meeting on the street. Since I was very spiritual, even as a young kid and a child, I said, I don't understand what it means, but I think I have to go for it.
Wow.
So that's exactly what happened.
Was he your age?
He was 4 or 5 years older than me.
And was he talking about moving to New York?
To
was that part of
exactly just a instant? I mean, this is a instant manifestation.
Right. So if you got nothing else, at least you got get to New York.
Exactly.
Right.
So it was just meant to be, because I was still questioning about, I was aware of manifestation, but I said, is that a coincidence?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let me explore this a little bit more. So yeah, so that's how I ended up in New York, and the marriage was short-living. Also, then I became a victim of a domestic violence. I don't like the word victim, because that's something that I've been working very hard to change in my life. So pretty much 2 years, I felt, as long as my family was in Bosnia, they were going through war. I was going through my own personal war, which I understood later on in life too, that there's a, let's say, karma. I thought that I could escape it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did physically escape it, but actually I had to go through the same struggle and tribulation as my people, or a group of people that I was born in.
Mm-hmm.
So interestingly enough, when the war ended, that's where my troubles ended in this marriage. I was able to escape, and at the same time, I was able to bring my mom and my brother out of Bosnia.
Wow.
So they were with me, and then when
they came to New York,
yes, 3 years after the war. So I was able to get the papers. That too was a miracle itself, how I was able to get them out and bring them. I mean, just looking back, it was just miracle after miracle after miracle.
Did your dad, what's up
My
with
dad wasn't able to leave. It took him probably 6 months after we were able to get him out as well. So when I left my first husband, I had nothing. Again, I had nothing.
And your parents had made it to that at that point.
Exactly. My mom and my brother, they came in and they stayed with me. But then situation in my private life was really hard and complicated. So it was matter of life and death.
Right.
I mean, that's what I was facing every single day. And then when I left, it was just, okay, now I got to survive again. Mm-hmm. Here I am with a 18-month-old baby. Right. I have my mom and my brother spending 3 years in the worst war of the century at the time. They had nothing. So it was on me to make it happen. And I just remember that, once I left, I had just one friend at the time who was Jehovah's Witness. She was the only person that I knew. I didn't have a place to go. I ended up going to her house, because the police officers told me when they came and kind of like helped me out through this situation when I was forced to leave. They told me if I come back that I would not survive, like I would be dead. So I
from your ex-husband.
Yes.
Right.
And so I said, wow, this is another war.
Right.
But the lady, or friend at the time, she was so helpful. She let us stay in her house for 7 days. In 7 days, I managed to get a job. I managed to get an apartment.
Had you not been working in New York?
No.
So your husband was just supporting you?
He was just, yes, he was keeping me. Pretty much, I was
captive.
I was in the house. I was pregnant. I had I had a baby. And so I wasn't able to go anywhere. So the only people that I was allowed somebody to knock on my door were Jehovah's Witnesses. And I said, oh, come on in.
Right.
Come on in.
Right. Nobody else was knocking on your door.
Nobody else was knocking on the door.
Right. Thank God for the Jehovah's Witnesses.
And that's actually, the friend, she saved our lives. So then right after that, I'm like, I have no time to feel pity for myself, or even cry. Or my mother always say, like, I don't understand how you can go through all this and never cry or never complain. I just knew that I had, 4 lives around me that needs my help. So I said I had to just be strong, and I have to suck it up and go.
Right.
And so I was able to get a job $4.25 an hour, children boutique store. At the time, I was so like stressed out, fearful. Post-traumatic stress was powerful at the time, but I
didn't even know what it
I didn't
is,
even
right?
know what it was.
You're in it.
I'm in it.
Right.
I had no one to talk. I just know that I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember numbers. I couldn't remember people's names. If somebody would just ask me anything, like, "Oh, do you know where this is?" I would freak out. Like I would have a panic attack because of the amount of fear that I endured in the past 2 years. So I had such a compassion for women that are going through these, situations, and children as well. But then again, something stronger and something that's always with me, that energy was always supporting me and like making me better.
Mm-hmm.
So after a year of that, I said, okay, well, maybe I can get a better job. And so from that position, I got a better job. I moved and I went into hotels and hospitality. So that's when I spent my 20 years of my life was in hospitality. But still constantly, I start educating myself and taking different classes or courses and whatever had to do with the human body and spirituality and yoga and breathing.
So that continued to be a theme.
Yes.
Through all this.
All this.
Did you ever get a degree from school? I mean, I'm assuming not, because the war happened and
exactly. Right. And that was that's something that I really kind of feel so robbed or taken away from me, because that was my desire. So I had to kind of satisfy that desire somehow. Yeah. So I was teaching myself, educating myself with whatever I could. Like I just want to learn and read. And, my mother used to come to my house, in my kitchen. I had this big table and I had all these books and I would just constantly learn and study. And she used to say, well, you could have been a doctor 3 times by now, how much you studied and how much you learned. But at the time, the education that I got from all the studies are also what's supporting Human Garage right now.
Yes, right. Well, how... what was the theme of those studies? I mean, I know you just looking at your bio or your resume, Kundalini Master kind of sticks out.
Yes.
What was the theme, and how did you get into Kundalini? And where did all that come in?
Spirituality, understanding energies, questions why bad things happen to good people. Especially like life and death. I was questioning a lot of about existence, how manifestation, how come, certain things happen. Everything that I put in on a paper manifests itself, good and bad. So I wanted to know what this life is all about. I realized there's so much more to this life than what we perceive. Right. And so I dig deep into spiritual studies of Kabbalah, yoga, Kundalini.
How did you know where to dig in? Like, did you just go to the library and get books? Did you find teachers?
Well, I was always...
Did they find you?
They find me. We found each other. It's magical, miracle experience of being alive and being a human. When you align yourself and kind of like connecting with yourself, I did spend a lot of time by myself and asking these questions. And then I would come, I would just think about something and then I would find book, maybe even on, in a subway, or somebody would leave it. I would.
So things would appear.
Things would just appear. Yeah, I was studying Kabbalah. Amazing things, like really, really magical things would be happening. I had the first transformation was when I had my knee surgery, and I remember that I remember just getting ready for the surgery, and I said, I don't want to go through a regular recovery time. I just need to get back on my feet really fast, because I know that people that have these kind of surgeries, it take them a long time. And I was...
What was the surgery for?
Meniscus.
Meniscus, okay. From gymnastics?
Gymnastics and running and just like pretty much, wear and tear
yep.
life. And I remember saying just day before, I was kind of looking forward to that surgery because this is the first time in 20 years that I'm going to take a break.
Right. Right.
Kinda
Even if it's
weird.
under anesthesia.
Right.
Wow.
Well, so this is what changed my life. I remember taking my garbage out that night and I said, God, I need some books to read like while I'm in recovery. And I said, I need to recover really fast and I don't want to go through like a regular route. So I'm going down to throw my garbage, and right on the side there was I found these books, maybe 10 of them. It's all about self-healing and 12 steps of healing, anatomy of spirit. I mean, all the books that I could just dream about. And I was like, whoa, that's weird. It's nicely wrapped. It was just waiting for me to come and get them.
Really?
Yep.
Next to the garbage.
Next to the garbage. I'm like, okay, well,
Wow.
this is, I guess, left for me. So I was so excited. And then what happened is, like, after the surgery, first when I started reading these books, things started appearing even more. And I remember 7 days after, I was back to work and I was working at the front desk and I had to stand all day on my feet.
Of a hotel?
The hotel. And I remember then there was this interesting looking man that came in and had this energy around him. And I said, I asked him, I said, excuse me, you look very familiar. And he just came to me and started looking in my eyes and he says, you have a Jewish soul. I'm like, okay. And he said to me, give me your hand. What's wrong with you? I said, well, I just had a knee surgery like 5 days ago or something like that. He says, give me your hand. So I was like, okay. I gave him my hand. He's like, okay, now go walk. I'm like, what do you mean walk? I can't. He says, walk. So I was like, okay, you said walk. So I'm like, I guess I can do it. Then I start walking and going up and down the stairs, and I run to the offices to my friends. And I said, oh my God, this man was just downstairs and he completely healed me. And I was like, well, this is kind of weird. At the same time, when, he started introducing me into like just healing.
Who did he turn out to be? Is
he turned out to be a healer, a Russian guy who introduced me that the power of like really intention and healing. And he told me, he says, you have the same ability to heal others.
Wow.
And I remember exactly at the same time, I had Shirley MacLaine coming over, James Van Praagh. They're all like a very powerful, spiritual people and leaders. And I remember that like exactly at the same time, it was almost like introduction into this new world of energy and healing and power of your mind and attention, intention. So then I started doing the same thing. I started getting this heat in my hands, and guests would come to hotel, and even cancer patients. We were close to Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, so we would have all kinds of sick people in the family staying at our hotel, and I would have family members ask me to put my hands on the sick ones. So then I started just doing what was really natural, and then I would start getting calls and emails from family members saying, "Oh, my husband recovered really kind of miraculously from a cancer," and kind of like interesting stories. But I really never paid too much attention to it. I'm like, it's not me. And then I remember, I spent 14 years at this hotel. And then
which hotel was it?
It's a Hotel Wales. It's on Upper East Side, 92nd and Madison. So pretty much amazing location, portal of lots of energy, historical landmark, beautiful things happen there. But I remember that at the same time, I was like, okay, now I think it's time to move to LA.
Now, wait, your son is how old at this point?
20.
Oh, so this has been a while.
This has been a while.
Did your mom and brother help raise him?
Yes, my mother, my family.
I imagine it was a big help.
They have. Yes, we used to live on this. So interesting enough, because I spent, we lived together in one apartment, but then my son was 10 years old, and I said, okay, now it's time for me to move out. But I said, I'm not going to move out anywhere else unless I get an apartment on the same floor. And then guess what? A couple days later, my super calls me, says, "Hey, I have an apartment right next door to your mom. Would you be interested?" I said, "Hallelujah, of course."
Wow.
Of course. So then I got this apartment. Perfect. You know, my mom is next door, so she's cooking and taking care of my son, so I can go and work and do what I need to do. And then so my son was 20, and I said, well, I've been single for this long. I dedicated my life to raising him and taking care of my family, and maybe now I can like get married. I haven't done that in a while.
Right. And the first try at it probably is not something you want to repeat.
No, of course, because I was so terrified. I was so scared, and I was, doing everything in my power to heal myself.
Well, how did your healing help your post-traumatic stress, or did it? I mean, had you over that 20 years?
Yes. Well, I kept myself busy. Some people would maybe use alcohol, drugs, and whatever, to not to feel that pain. But I use spirituality. I would spend, hours and hours studying and praying and meditating and taking different classes and meeting different, teachers and practices. So that was what kept me really from looking into my problems.
Yep.
I don't think really it sustained me, but I can't say really it healed me.
Right.
I have to say that healing happened here in the last 3 years.
Well, because if you're not looking at it, you're, I mean, in a way, was some of that avoidance of it?
Yes.
Because
Fear.
it allowed you to just continue to living your life rather than go into the dark places that might even stop you from living your life.
Definitely. And I understand why a lot of people would choose, all kinds of things just not to look at it and feel it.
Yep.
But there was a time when I realized that, I need to look at that shadow. I need to look at that dark side, even in me, because I learned through my practice that everything that happens to us is actually some kind of reflection. Right. What's going on inside. So why am I attracting these things? Why this happened to me? And taking, instead of saying, he was bad, or the situation was bad, or war is bad, why it happened to us? Taking charge of, situations and certain things. So I decided not to be a victim or to blame anyone else, but really to take that power and charge back. So
how do you, that's really amazing, because if I think about a lot of the stories you've told, you were like a quintessential victim.
Yes.
I mean, over and over again.
Exactly.
How did you find the strength? How did you know to do that? How did you know to, cause I mean, that doesn't seem intuitive to me. You could just collapse into, it's not my fault. And the world's to blame, and everybody's out to get me, and here it is again, and you could be living a very different life today had you done that.
Definitely. There's something inside of each one of us. That's something that is so powerful. The will for life, just this fire in your gut, just like survival. You want to survive, and you want to thrive, not survive, but you want to thrive, and you want to be, the best version of yourself.
But how did you find that? Because I mean, that's not universal. I mean, if you look out at the world, this is not like common. I mean, there's a big piece of, this is you. This is something that came out of you that is not normal or not. It's very unique, I think.
Thank you. Yes, I always say is, I don't know if you want to call it God or universal love or this animated force that keeps us all alive. And, there's something that I always felt that I had help, something next to me, either, we would say my higher self was guiding me, or something else was giving me that strength. Right. I still don't know, I can't say exactly, but I just knew that this intuition inside of me it's actually what's even guiding Human Garage today. Sometimes, things don't make sense, but I have I can predict things, or I just feel almost like this animalistic, very strongly discovered animalistic instinct.
Yeah, right.
I think we all have it.
It seems like you're listening in ways that maybe some people don't even know what to listen to.
Yes.
I don't know. It's and I speak for myself. I mean, I don't know how you do it. Like I think that that harnessing or cultivating that intuitiveness and that power of listening is a really big important.
It's so important, and I feel like the reason why I was preserved and why we're here today is personally I feel like I have a huge mission to share this, feeling and teach people how to really tap into that same energy. And when you feel down and you feel like this is the end of my road, how do you recover?
Yep.
How do you find strength to go on? It's so beautiful because we all have it. And I think it's in us, like you said, listening, awareness, the first thing. So I have learned so many new things since we started Human Garage. And I also say Human Garage is a really unique place. People may think it's just, physical. When you walk through that door, you have aches and pains and we fix it. There's so much more that's going on behind the scenes that that's what people feel. I mean, there are many places that you can go get a chiro body work done, especially here in Venice where we are. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Every block there's another place.
Right. And there's an essence that Human Garage has. Everybody in a garage, we have a story. And it's kind of like combining so that we create a mission of like really helping humanity and helping people today, especially today. For me, educating younger, generations and studying with children, we're losing that sense of not just the survival, but that intuitive sense of being able to endure under pressure.
Well, and it's not just endure; it's endure in a way that moves people forward.
Exactly.
Rather than endure
just to survive.
Yes. You're moving forward. You're moving the conversation forward. You're moving your energy forward. You're moving your ability to help others forward. And that's very different than just surviving.
Exactly. That's what happened, 3 years ago when we started Human Garage. Gary and I, we were patient zero. Pretty much, I think, after 20 years of suffering, there's only so much your physical body can take. Then you start feeling disease and aches and pains and all kinds of issues. So this started happening when I was 41, 42, and I just couldn't recognize myself. So that's how actually even the fact how I met Gary was quite interesting, because I was at the end, like my physical body was hurting. As an athlete, you get it. It's like you rely a lot on your physical body.
Yeah, right.
And then once you start feeling aches and pains, then that's kind of, okay, what can I do? That can weaken your spirit.
Yep.
And the willpower. So I couldn't recognize myself. Here I am.
Well, yeah, because all the things that were easy are now not. Maybe they're not hard, but they hurt.
They hurt. Yeah, just getting up in the morning, you're like not feeling yourself. It's foggy. Like it takes you time to kind of like hear. I rely a lot on my physical strength. That's one thing that I kind of came into this world with a very a powerful physical strength. So when
How many years were you a gymnast?
Probably 15.
Yes, I mean that right out of the gate. My wife was too. I'm not sure if you and Julia talked about that, but there's a massive difference in someone that has the amount of gymnastic. I always say gymnastics, maybe martial arts is close, but it provides that foundation for everything. Everything. Every piece, any movement you want to do in your life, you tell it to a gymnast, they can figure it out and do it.
It has.
They might not be great at it, but they can figure it out and do it.
I think it has to do something with a brain capacity or mental capacity. The way the brain figures out how you're gonna do certain things on balancing beam. It's like you always have to be 10 steps ahead of the game.
I think you can develop it. You can, like, I always look at kind of my journey. I was a musician. I didn't do any real sports. I was kind of I wanted to be good at sports when I was growing up, and I wasn't. My friends were all good at sports, and then you know, when I went away to college, I got this chance to like start doing other stuff, and I've never stopped. Like I kind of made my life about kind of journeying, and I, you know, 3 months ago I took up the unicycle, and I'm learning how to unicycle, and but I don't have the foundation. It takes me many more months probably than had I had that, you know, gymnastic or background, that neurological.
That's why I think it's so important for children, you know, for young generation. Right now, you know, back in Bosnia at the time, all of it was free. So it was just a, you know, desire of a child to go into it.
All the training was free? All the gym training, time was free?
Yes, everything was free. So that's something that...
Was that because it's a cultural, just gymnastics, or was it everything was free?
Everything was free.
Wow.
Education was free, you know. Right. So in my mind right now, it's like even with Human Garage, what we're doing, it's building it up so that we can step up and really serve the community, and then, you know, create army of people that really truly understand what, you know, education and awareness and sharing this information with especially like with parents now. Our generation, you know, now our children, we were so busy working and providing, and kids are kind of left to themselves or to iPhones and internet, social media.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, that's a whole nother story. I mean, the babysitting, the ability of a parent to disappear from their kid's life because the iPad or the iPhone is the babysitter.
Exactly.
It's I mean, I look around and it happens all the time. I mean, I've done it. I'm not immune from it, but I'm very conscious of the times that I do it, and I really limit that in Dash. And
I feel like it's our job and duty to really bring this awareness to the world. And Human Garage is not only about fixing human body, but also creating education and awareness for the rest of the world. We want to go global.
Well, tell me about what your part, because I know Gary's story, and I know how the therapy that he found and kind of developed through, we talked a lot about it in the last podcast. How was your experience, and how did you weave in your background and stuff into what became this thing?
When I met Gary, that's when everything was breaking down in my body. And I just remember one night, you know, so my surgery was on the right knee. My left knee started hurting and swelling, and I couldn't walk, and I couldn't work, and I couldn't do anything.
From no acute injury.
No,
it just started
by
happening.
itself. It happened. And I said, "Oh God, please send me somebody. I need a healer."
And you'd moved to LA at this point.
I'm here. I'm working for a yoga studio. Pretty much like what I always wanted to do. But my body was breaking down. I couldn't, you know, I couldn't even work anymore. So I said, I need help. And the next day, I met Gary.
God. I want to hang out with you more. All you got to do is like say something, and boom, all of a sudden it just shows up.
My gift is a gift of manifestation.
Wow.
It's great, but at the same time,
you got to be careful. I
have to be very careful what I wish for.
Right.
That's why, you know, the importance.
I don't want to be on your bad side.
No, I don't even want to be on my bad side. That's my part of, you know, Human Garage is really like I think and things manifest. If I'm in a bad mood, then, you know, things are not going so well in the garage. So the energy is in it. And what, you know, even with like meeting Gary, and when we got together, we were just not even dating. We were like 3 months when he asked me to get married. And I remember just, you know,
were you like healing, working on each other?
He came into my life, and I remember first time when he put me on a table, I just remember like melting. Like the first time, it seems like knee is indicator that's it. Like you got to take a break. Yeah. So the second knee, I knew something magnificent is going to happen again in my life. And then I remember he worked on my knee. Swelling went down like instantly, and he said to me that you have to be off your feet for 72 hours. I said, yeah, sure. So as soon as I walked out and I started squatting and I started lunging, and I'm like, okay, cool, I can go back and teach classes. I used to teach kickboxing and cardio and all kinds of different things.
Where were you in LA?
It's a NAAM yoga studio on 4th Street.
In Santa Monica?
4th
Street, NAAM Yoga. Why don't I know about that? Where is that? 4th Street.
It's right between
4th Street.
Wilshire and Arizona.
Yep. Oh yeah. Okay, I can kind of picture that block, but I'm not familiar with that studio.
Yeah. So
anyway.
that's the magic happened right there, and
so you went back.
I went back, and I was like, fiery. I said, okay, great class, but then as soon as I finished teaching, my knee started swelling again. I'm like, oh no, I gotta go see them again. Shoot, how am I gonna do this? And then this time I went back, and I remember he's like brought 3 different practitioners, and they're all working on me.
So he was actually doing stuff.
He was doing
point.
stuff. Yes,
okay.
yes. This was with the different modality, and I just remember it's like, okay, now they forced me to promise that this is it. I'm gonna take 3 days off, which was the hardest thing for me to do. Like I'm always active. I can't stay still. So I listened this time, and actually I started healing again. But this was just the beginning of healing. I had no idea that I had accumulated 20 years of my life that I didn't want to see it. So as much as I was in love, peace, and light, and following yogic tradition and practice and be positive, and the healing happened when I was able to stop and look at the dark side of me.
And okay, so did you have help with that?
Gary was my help.
Wow.
He was the one who is still working on me. I'm still healing. I'm still, going through this process. And I think, universe sent me such a patient man anybody else would not be able to put up with. Because, when you go through something like that, so compassion is very important in this process, in the healing, especially when we're working with people that have experienced so much trauma. And I'm not sure, people with trauma usually would push away anybody that wants to help them. They can even turn to be like an abuser, in a sense, So you have to have a strong support. And Gary's been that support for me. So I remember, moving Human Garage from the garage to our apartment. And just keep in mind that for me, my home was safe haven. I didn't want to open doors to too many people. This is something that I just needed. In order for me to heal, I had to have this safe place. And my house was that. So just imagine now I have to open my door to 350 strangers to walk through my living room, my bedroom. So I used to have massive panic attacks. Gary used to say, well, we got to do this. And in my mind, I understood. I said, okay, this is another test. If I'm able to, help these people, I'm gonna open my heart. And if I cannot open my house for people that I need in pain. So this was a test for me. I said, oh, here I'm talking. I want to help people, but
do you really?
But do I really?
Yeah,
exactly. Right. And then usually, what happens is when you're in most pain and when you are in a place that you almost feel like I have nothing, and then somebody comes to you and asks you for help, or even knock on your door when, let's say, somebody's asking you for food, just an example, and you don't have any. You have maybe just a little enough food, and stranger comes out of nowhere and knocks on your door and ask for help. That's the time when you need to share. That's the time when you are in pain and when you are in a situation that you're like, I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. And all of a sudden you have, people come to you, ask you for help. That's the time when you need to give. That's the time when you need to serve. That's the
time when you feel like you don't have anything to give.
Exactly. That's when miracle happens.
God, that's so hard.
That's exactly. It's almost like a penicillin. It's almost like a, using poison to cure.
Right.
So this is a spiritual practice when you're hurting the most and you have, depression and anxiety. I always say, go serve, go to hospital, or it doesn't matter, go to community center, or find somebody that needs help. Find somebody that needs help, and
serve, and you will see how magic happens. That's how we open the door to these miracles that are happening.
Right.
And so the same
So you opened your house.
I opened my house.
How did you deal with, I mean, I can picture my house. I can picture my wife, first of all. She has a hard time opening the door for anyone because she's afraid that people will actually see the mess or the pile of this.
Or be judged.
Or be judged, right. Be judged by that. And that kind of drives me crazy because it's like, I don't care. Like,
right.
I
Well,
don't have
Gary's
I don't
the
have
same
that.
way. Exactly.
Right. So how did you, I mean, that's overwhelming.
For
I
me,
wouldn't,
it
I
was
don't think I would want that. I mean, that's
exactly
extreme.
But I knew, since I studied all the spiritual different concepts, I knew that I recognized that this is my opportunity to shift something.
Yep.
And as soon as I realized that, as soon as I said, okay, I'm good with it, boom, we just got a new place that, host Human Garage for last 3 years.
Right.
Our
What
old
did you
location.
shift? What did you shift inside?
I just said, you know what? I'm opening the doors. I'm happy people are coming to my house.
Because you have the same concerns, right? Of people
Exactly.
seeing you,
Oh,
judging you,
absolutely. And it's also
messiness of.
but on top of that, it's the safety for me. Like
Right.
there's a lot of
Right.
backstory behind. Like there's a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
Because I've been pushed out of my house. I really never had a safe home. So for me, it's like this is my safety nest.
Yeah. Where do I go now?
Where do I go now?
Where is my safety nest?
Well, the therapy was the walk to the like the store. I was just tell Sarah, I was like, I gotta go take my therapy walk.
Right.
But then the miracle happened. Just when you think that you can't take it anymore, it was just, okay, now this is where I'm gonna change everything. That's exactly what happened. So we just take our tables and moved everything to this whole location, and that's how we started Human Garage.
Now, did you continue teaching yoga? How much, in addition to supporting Gary and getting the Human Garage going, how much of the other stuff were you continuing to do?
I had to be honest with you, I had to put on hold teaching and practicing. At the same time, it was just me recognizing the power of spirituality, and especially like breath work and yoga, and using that to start activating people. So once you're done with the treatment, what do you do with yourself? Do you go back to your old habits?
Well, I'm there right now. I mean, I'm not done.
Yes.
I'm still going through a lot of the training with Ryan and the gym but I do have that question. Like, what do I do now?
Exactly, because you change. You start recognize certain things, you question. So at the end of the day, like I realized it's all about alignment, being balanced in everything we do.
Yep.
Being too happy, too sad, you're still creating stress in your body. I think the reason why we're alive is to be conscious and aware how to maintain that homeostasis or balance.
Yep.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, in every aspect, and not just for ourselves, but then for the family. I think that's the hardest thing today to do. It's really, how do we achieve that balance? So at the Human Garage, what we do is creating that, body alignment, physical alignment. But once people start recognizing that alignment, there's biochemical alignment, then it's like spiritual alignment. So I've done spirituality. I've done a lot of work like yoga, but I still it didn't fix me. It helped me, but it didn't take care of the core issue. So now what we want to do at the Human Garage is really go to the source.
And what's the source?
Well, the source is really like kind of allowing people to start seeing that, to recognize and be okay with that dark side and taking charge of your life. Like not saying, because of my childhood, now I have a messed up life. Because of, life didn't treat me well, now I'm messed up. Now I have reason not to be good. But really kind of like taking charge of that.
Like being responsible. What you've done by yourself without knowing what you were doing.
Exactly. Like I always say, if the therapy doesn't work, it's not just the therapy. Ask yourself, what is it that I don't want to see it in me?
Right.
So a lot of times, like I would say, Human Garage is not for everyone. And right now, we're not actively going after people. We're existing so that when you're ready, when person is ready to come in, okay, anyone that walks through that door needs to understand that, okay, certain things gonna pop up, certain things that maybe pains and aches that I didn't even know existed in my life. You know, you come in with one pain and that pain is gone, and then something else comes back. And you're like, oh, now I have this pain.
Right.
So there are layers and layers and layers and layers of pain.
Well, like Gary talked about in the last podcast, you know, you can really only experience about 3 pains at a time.
Right.
And so what are you not feeling? What are you not seeing? What are you not, you know, your brain is very, very, very good at filtering the things out that it doesn't think are necessary for you.
Absolutely.
So I think that you're right on the money when you know, like, I keep hearing in my head, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yes.
And it may have been in front of you the whole time, and you just weren't ready to see it.
Always. Yes, exactly. Because if we're not ready. And, you know, we have clients, I spend thousands of hours on phone calls with, you know, nutritionists and going over biochemical panel with clients. So everybody that comes to Human Garage, not only that you get physically aligned, but also biochemically. So the testing that we do is not a clinical test. It's I personally think it's an energetic test on a certain level. Like just looking at the biomarkers, I can look at the biomarker and completely get the whole download on a person, on personality and the behavioral mindset. You know, sometimes when we're on the call with somebody, and if you would say, okay, first thing in the morning, make sure you have a good breakfast and, you know, good fats and good proteins. And then I have people that would say, they would fight me, or they would be like questioning that. But, you know, they could be taking Klonopin or some really powerful drugs.
Yep.
They wouldn't, you know, they don't see that, but they would question, just take a half of avocado or take a spoon of, you know, coconut oil, or just something. Don't go like empty till like 1 o'clock. Education is a big part, because you can see it that people are fighting themselves.
Yep.
And we've done it so many times. So I know that the person that fights me the most, or a person that has more resistance, they're gonna see the best results sometimes, you know, because then the transformation is even bigger, in a sense.
Yep.
Because it's a big, you know, jump from where they are and the way they think and the mindset. And I love that. I love when I see it, because it's like, okay, patience and compassion is what's necessary on our part as a, you know, therapists and practitioners. So yes, I was very much engaged through the whole process in biochem department and nutrition. So that was my passion.
I think it's amazing. It's very hard, I think, for people. I mean, I can speak from my own experience, but I also know this is common with others, is from a biochemical standpoint, from a supplement standpoint, there's very often no outward indicator that anything that you're doing is changing anything. And you know, like, it can be very challenging to keep someone on the path of, okay, just keep going. I know you don't feel anything, but things are changing. You got to trust me.
Exactly. Well, that was me 20 something years. I didn't feel anything. You know, body has such an amazing resilience and resistance.
Yeah.
That sometimes, you know, maybe it's going to take lifetimes to realize that people live and die, never learning that there's a better way. But that's what I'm saying is like openness, having a trust, and having a good friend, or having somebody that can be there as a support or a guide through this process. Physically, maybe we don't feel it, but then, you know, husband or wife or friend can recognize, like, oh, you look different.
Something's happening, right?
Something is happening.
Changing, right?
Something is changing. So I think it's amazing. You know, it's important to have a good support group. And I think that's another one that we're going to be building in Human Garage, like a lifestyle. After you're done with the program, that there is a place where you can call and be part of it, or just ask questions. Breathing classes that I'm doing I've started doing it. It's a really awesome place.
Now, tell me about your breathing classes, because I'm intrigued. I've done a lot of. There's a guy named Ryan McEwen who wrote a book called The Oxygen Advantage, who I had on the podcast, and he's a breathing expert. He's been doing it for like 20 years. He teaches a breathing style called Biochemical breathing. And so I've done a lot of reading and playing around with, like, I still, to this day, I tape my mouth shut at night.
I do too.
Do you really?
Yes.
To breathe through my nose. My wife thought I was completely insane, and then she found out some other people do it too, and she's like, maybe it's not so crazy. I know.
It was funny when one night I did the same thing. I heard it, maybe, I'm not sure where I heard it, but I was like, I'm going to practice this. So I didn't say anything to Gary, but I remember when he woke up and he turned around and was like, what?
I didn't do it, I promise.
Imagine just see your wife with a taped mouth.
Right.
So yeah, that's, most of us do like a mouth breathers, but which activates the sympathetic, means we're constantly in sympathetic nervous system.
Right.
Always, fight or flight, freeze. So cortisol. So it doesn't matter how much you work out, doesn't matter how well you eat. If that's what's sustaining you, like through sympathetic nervous system, it's hard to see results,
Right.
Otherwise. So I think breathing is the key. It's the beginning of healing. So if you steps like breath work, rest, sleep, nutrition, body alignment, consciousness and awareness.
Well, let's go back to breath work though. So what do you mean? Somebody's listening to this podcast and going, okay, I'm going to follow her advice. I'm going to start with breath work.
Well, it's good to find a good place. Breath work, breathing, it's pretty much like you hear a lot, like everybody's talking about it now. When I started doing this, 15 years ago, nobody really, what we were doing.
Even now, I mean, we live in a bubble on a bubble on a bubble in Santa Monica.
Right.
So, even now, people are
still not conscious. And
that's you go to Florida or you go to rural America, there's nobody's talking about breath work. They're barely talking about yoga.
I know. And I think that's the life force in us, prana, chi, what keeps us alive. So imagine that you can heal yourself just like consciously understanding the way we breathe. So imagine if we can do that in schools. If we can start teaching children early, just how do you calm your nervous system? Certain exercises, that we can do is even just starting with being aware that you're stressed out or you're producing cortisol. We know how, we pretty much all been there. We know how that reflects in our body. Like, your heart rate goes up,
shallow breathing.
Yeah.
Right.
So imagine if you are able just to stop and then close your mouth and then start breathing through your nose. Even if it's for 3 minutes, even if it's 1 minute. But the importance is like being aware when to stop and when to start.
Right.
So I'm teaching and we use different technologies in my practice. We work with the sound, we work with the breath, we work with mudras, activating body through just like certain positions. You can work on your liver, your adrenals, your kidney. And people ask me, oh, what do I do for adrenals? I would just say, if we work on your nervous system, if we just are able to keep you in parasympathetic, pretty much you would have, balance your heart, your liver, your kidneys, everything will benefit from it. So
yeah, it's interesting. People want to identify the thing that's wrong, like their knee or their adrenals, and treat that.
Exactly.
And it's like I think, Gary, we were talking about cars, and like it's like saying, okay, I need to fix the spark plugs, and not looking at the impact of the spark plugs on everything else in the system.
Right.
And not realizing that, maybe something you do that's related to the exhaust would and I'm not a car expert.
Right.
So I don't know.
Neither.
I might be completely wrong about this, but maybe
Just a
something
break.
related to the
Just a break.
exhaust
Yeah, right.
might affect the spark plugs, or something else going on with the engine.
Absolutely.
And people don't think about their bodies that way.
No.
I mean, they think about they want to isolate. They want to go to the specialist to see the specialist about the knee or about the adrenals.
And it has to be complicated. People don't understand that simplicity. That cure is simple. Like healing is simple. If it's complicated, then a question, but we're conditioned to think that complicated things are better.
Yeah.
Just, simplicity of breath is like, I'm not sure.
Well, it's very hard to believe it.
Right.
I mean, I think of people who, it's hard to believe that if you slowly start to integrate parasympathetic and breathing techniques in your life, that your shoulder pain you've been experiencing for 5 years might subside.
Absolutely.
Like the idea that the whole concept of that seems in some levels ludicrous. Like, what are you talking about? That just seems
because of conditioning that we have been, all educated and conditioned in that sense. And this is the new shift. Everybody's talking about, enlightenment, and people are becoming more and more aware of these things. I mean, especially here in Venice and California, where we live.
Yeah.
I take it for granted because I see so many of it, and I know that the rest of the world, what we're talking about right now, it's kind of like, whoa,
it's out there. It's out there. Yeah. And we haven't even really gone down the wormholes we talked about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because Gary told you don't be too weird, right?
He told me
don't go too
be
out
normal.
There. Be normal. Right. You've been very normal.
I am trying. That's why I've been very careful, like choosing words when I want to talk about, spiritual aspect of it. But for example, electrolytes. I know Gary talked a lot about hydration, simple things about hydration. We're electromagnetic chemical beings. And so everything that happens to us is the chemistry.
Yeah. I've been playing around with creating a slurry, like a salt water slurry, like super saturated water, not super saturated, but fully saturated salt water, and just adding, instead of putting salt crystals in my water, just taking a little bit of like a liquid amount and putting that in my water. Like from Himalayan sea salt or Celtic sea salt.
You can, yes. So then again, it's like it's important to understand how the body works. I think the best investment is really investing in yourself and your education and awareness. And, I know that's my passion. That's why I'm wondering about certain things are happening, muscles are twitching. That means your electrolytes are really low or you're low on potassium. But being able to recognize certain patterns in your body, like it changes all the time.
Right.
Everything is. Right. We talk a lot about pesticides and herbicides and toxicity, and it's everywhere. Like we have people, they do everything right, eating right and doing everything right. But then it's now understanding like chemtrails.
Yep.
So
you go to Costco. And you look at organic stuff at Costco.
I question. I don't.
Yeah, immediately. Like I'm like, okay, this is nice that it says organic, but what does that mean? Is that really, is it the same as if I go to the farmer's market and buy a bushel of spinach at the farmer's market that what I get at Costco? I have a hard time believing that. What
we have seen, we probably tested over 4,000 people, if not, I'm not sure if the number is accurate, but a lot of people. So what we see is adrenal fatigue, digestion issue. Those two things are common, 99%. And people that we test are healthy people. What I love about this testing is it's indicator where you're going to be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now. So this is something, I would say is like nothing happens suddenly. Heart attack is not suddenly. It may look like suddenly, but nothing is sudden.
Right.
So I personally observe myself, I understand when my electrolytes are low because of, a lot of brain trauma and a lot of trauma in my life. I know that cortisol, pretty much I'm just always in sympathetic nervous system. So I need consciously to make decision to be like, okay, it's happening now. I need to take a break. So for me, more than normal people, my response would be faster. Like I would, it could be, something could be very simple and be like, oh, that's not a big deal. But my instincts get turned on like instantly, and then my cortisol, my adrenals. So I know issues that I have, and constantly like you gotta go for a walk, you gotta take a bath, you gotta spend some time meditating, you gotta get a fascia flow, or you gotta get some body work done, because self-love is what we're preaching now, and what we're really kind of making people understand. It's not a selfish thing to do, because if you're good, then everybody's good around you. But if you are not, then the whole world is going to be messed up.
Absolutely.
So,
so what is your day like? Like, how do you take care of yourself to make sure that you're in the best light that you can be on a daily basis? What does it look like in your day?
Now, I have to slow down myself so much more, because my brain works really fast, sometimes faster than my words. So I have to constantly keep myself in check. Okay. I gotta, get up in the morning, have a good breakfast.
What time do you get up?
Usually like around 7.
Okay.
Depends. If I'm training clients, then I would get up at like 6 o'clock. But I want to be that person that people gonna come to me and say, I want to have what you have. I want to be that balanced person. And I know how difficult it's hard with running a business and, just living life constantly. It's a nonstop to some degree, but it's important that you go to bed. Another thing I want to mention too is, being sensitive to other people's energies, recognizing that maybe this company is not good for me.
Right.
If I'm around that person, my energy gets lower and I feel stressed out.
Well, it's interesting. I'm watching the show. Have you ever seen the show called Billions?
I think so. Maybe a couple of.
It's a Showtime show, and it's about a guy who's a hedge fund manager and lives in a incredibly high stress world, and you can't work at his company
no.
unless you also operate well in a very, 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 very high stress world. And so the impact of the communities that we choose to be around perhaps have even more of an impact than anything we might be doing to counteract that. All the supplements you can take, all the exercising, all the massages you can get. If you're putting yourself in those communities and you're putting yourself in that environment, you're fighting an uphill battle that you can't win.
You can't win. So recognizing that, I think it's a first step. Sometimes, being alone is necessary, or taking that time for yourself and going to places, that will make you feel calm. Everything we do is, using anything that can keep us in that calm state. It's important. I was looking for my rescue remedy. I have this rescue remedy is a homeopathic remedy that just, it's a homeopathic, so it's really safe. But I take that if I'm going to have a stressful day. Or
is it a liquid supplement?
It's a liquid supplement, yes.
Rescue remedy.
But just being conscious of it, like when you're driving and you're sitting in the car, it's okay. 5 minutes being late, or, just we get so stressed out.
Yeah, right.
I live in New York, so we use subway. But now that I'm driving more, I'm like recognizing how that could be stressful for some people.
Right.
So I think it's just like being able to recognize that. I would personally choose, if I know that certain people and certain energy is not good for me, I'm not going to allow myself, just because I want to be nice. I have to respect like what I need first.
Yep.
So I would apologize to some people and say, well, right now I don't feel, let's say if I have a stressful day to begin with, and now if I go into that company and be around people that are even stressing me out more, that's just like, whew.
So what I hear you saying is something to the effect of learning how to say no.
Exactly. It's hard.
Right.
It's for a lot of people, it's really hard to, that's kind of self-love. The line between, being, are you selfish?
Because you want to serve others.
Exactly.
But you have to know your limit. You want to do really, really well at serving people, and not kind of well at serving tons of people, or not even like just a little bit well at serving millions of people. Like choose your level of effectiveness.
Exactly. So it's important to constantly replenish yourself.
So I want to go back to your day.
Yes.
So how many hours of sleep do you get?
I try to get 7 to 8.
Okay.
It's really, really important.
Are you still taping your mouth shut?
I am.
Interesting. All right, cool.
I am.
We
I'm
share that in
practicing
common. I love
yes. I know. Gary was like weirded out. First he was like, I don't know what that is, but again, I come up with all these crazy ideas right now.
Now, do you work out first thing in the morning? Do you stretch?
I do.
What's your morning?
Yes, I do. Now what I do, because my adrenals are really stressed and, I'm healing my adrenals right now. So I don't do anything too crazy, like just simple walk or stretch, like really kind of
10 minutes,
15 to 20 minutes.
Okay.
More of a yin workouts.
Right,
I was the one who was always like kickboxing, like you gotta kill yourself.
Yeah, right. CrossFit. I'm going CrossFit for 20 minutes.
In New York City, I used to run 13 miles a day. That was just that's the way I would heal my brain, because my brain was so active I couldn't rest.
Yeah, right.
Unless I run or do something. So, but that actually, I didn't know that was actually...
That's continuing to propagate the sympathetic and all the...
Always, yes. So as much as, it's hard for me to like adopt this new procedure or protocol of just like slowing down, meditate and go for a walk. I do walk like, I would say 10,000 steps. That's a nice walk and meditation at the same time. Then resistant training, yes, right now I'm going to get more into it because I feel like my body is healing and I can go back to my old routines. But this is, for me, was really taking time off and just slowing everything down.
So okay, so then you take this time in the morning, you eat breakfast.
Yes.
What does work look like?
Work is pretty much, that could be very chaotic, or you never know, because there's so many things, so many things going on at the same time. Constantly, you always have to be on. It's pretty much like a doctor on call. Yeah,
right. Well, when you got the employees, and I mean, you have a huge staff, and then you have your clients and the people that you're working with.
Yes. So my desire would be like next step is really tapping into my creative side. I want to, work closely one-on-one with people, and that's the program we're developing right now, education. And to be honest with you, I would love to do a lot of like a volunteer work and going to shelters for women, schools, and just teaching simple routines that would, help people take care of themselves. We're living in a different times. I mean, I know it's more, for me at least, it's more stressful. I feel like people that we also see, they have so much stress. Everybody is. Doesn't matter who you are. So how do we manage that stress? And we all know that stress is cause of everything.
Well, it's a bombardment. Like it comes from every angle, and there's so much pressure to succeed and to work and to get ahead that, we've lost the ability almost to, you have to be very, very disciplined to carve out this self-love time.
So much more. It takes preparation.
Yeah.
I always tell people, and that's something that I have to apply for myself. You got to schedule time off.
Yeah, right.
You have to have some kind of schedule. Otherwise, life is going to take you. And
so do you have a time in your schedule that you stop working? Like, is your...
Right
How
now,
do you do it?
Right now, no. But I'm slowly making progress. And, that's something that's really important for me to find that time. Again, it's like scheduling, because...
So how do you do dinner?
Dinner, well, I cook. I love to cook.
Oh, cool.
I want to cook. I want to cook for masses and masses of people. I just believe that, it's a healing modality as well. Right. And I think that that's something that we lost touch with. Cooking is very therapeutic for me. And I just have to say, like, 2 years ago, my son used to say, he's like, "Mom, you're the only person that can burn water." Like, I I wasn't good in kitchen at all.
Right.
So it's just a surprise.
Changed.
That has changed.
Wow.
I mean, I feel like when I cook, it just heals people.
Mm-hmm.
And
so do you cook for Gary? Do you cook for
yes, I cook for Gary. I cook for anyone that wants to eat.
I'll eat.
We gotta have
I'm coming over.
Oh my gosh. I just, it's a kind of orgasmic experience when you eat good food. And it's so many restaurants here. And I just say, like, why would I go to a restaurant when it doesn't give me the same satisfaction than when I'm eating my own food?
Right.
And then you know where it's coming from. And I think what we are losing too is that touch. There's something happens when you're touching food and when you're preparing food. Kind of like a feedback, with the food. And
well, there's a connection, right? There's a connection to what you're consuming for your own nourishment, your own well-being, that when you prepare the food yourself, you have a connection to the universe.
Yes.
You have a connection to nature. And
absolutely.
And when you don't, I mean, there's a convenience factor that I think is really important for people, but you don't get that connection.
No. And even if you have some restaurants, like when you become so sensitive, we love Air One and, breakfast burritos, custom breakfast burritos. But I can tell you that I can feel the energy of the person that makes it. When people say, oh, but I eat organic, you have to be 100%. Like, you really have to be vigilant about your diet or nutrition and what goes into your mouth, because even tiny little bit, Gary and I, we talk a lot about like organic coffee and organic wine. Not many people really pay attention. It's kind of like off the radar. Yeah. You go to the restaurant, you have a good time, and you order a glass of wine. And with my clients, I would say, pay attention. And so now they start asking the same question when they go to the restaurants, and they get the same kind of strange look from the waiter. What do you mean organic? We would bring our own wine if we go to the restaurant, just because we are safe. Glyphosate and pesticides, herbicide are so.
Well, Gary told me he had to come back early from Mexico, right?
Yes,
because he got triggered by a non-organic wine.
I mean, just food in general and consciousness. Yeah. Like when you go away someplace, then you start paying attention. That there's a different consciousness in people. Yeah. Like even you ask for almond milk and they give you soy milk because they think it's just not cow milk.
Yeah, it's the same thing. They won't know the difference.
Thing, right?
Right.
So this is a part of education. I mean, we're just waking up, but the whole world needs to be like on the same frequency to understand, so that we can make changes. And we're not going to support restaurants that are serving non-organic food, but I have a couple of places that we love. Even here in Venice, maybe we only go to 3 restaurants. Osteria is the one. In Venice, it's Italian, awesome seafood. And
where's the place on Nabokini that Gary was talking about?
Salt Air.
Salt Air
is good. And also there's a French chicken that is organic. Bon Petit Poulet, yes, my little chicken. It's a kind of like a hidden gem, but it's all organic, and on top of that, it's like the love that they put in the food. It's really delicious. And there are also some famous restaurants that just don't serve organic food. So I think more of us are, how we make this change is more of us aware of this,
being aware.
and supporting businesses that are really trying hard to maintain service. And it's expensive to run restaurants like that, but I'm all about supporting local businesses. I'm all about talking about it, what's good, and then there's certain, so I'm not even going to name it, but there's certain big famous places here in Venice that a lot of people just want to go because it's fancy. So imagine we all come together and we all have the same question, because then you're forcing certain restaurants to start practicing, like really understanding that how much I put into this is how much I'm going to get out of it. It's kind of that consciousness is, if you care, you're going to get more clients, you're going to get more customers, people going to come back. But if you're going to serve food just because, people can come and go, but you want to have, repeat clients, and you want to develop community. And I think this is a new way, and this is what's emerging right now, and what's happening with more and more people asking these questions and wondering, it's not just, like you said, what you get, but who is preparing your food.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it's what oils they're using.
Yeah, right. Huge difference.
Huge.
Canola oil versus coconut oil or
Right.
almond oil or avocado oil or, massive difference. And
So
people don't even,
cross
it
your
took
mind.
it took me quite a while to convince Julia that we should get rid of all the canola oil in our house.
Yes.
And she's like, but all the recipes call for it. I'm like,
Substitute.
right. So
Yeah.
so what if they do? Let's try something different.
Yeah, this is a time, we live in a really exciting time, and I'm so excited, and I'm so happy that we have a platform like your podcast to share this with people. And this is just a beginning, that what we're doing. And I just can't wait, getting excited every morning to get up and, what life we're going to change today.
I don't want to forget, because I know we're wrapping up. We got to wrap up. How do you finish your day? Do you have a
Yes.
routine at night that you follow?
I do. I come home, and then I would use my Juve light. That's
What? What?
Juve light.
Juve light.
It's near infrared
I
light.
think I've heard of that. Is
Yes.
it red? Is it red?
It's a red. Yes.
Huh.
So taking
I don't know
a bath,
anything about it, and that would open up another wormhole if we
Right,
started
exactly.
talking right now. and
Right.
We don't have time.
but I do really like a conscious settling down or winding down or landing. So come home, it's just taking a bath, getting a candle.
That's part of your
That's
evening,
the part of my routine, and then sitting in front of near infrared lights for maybe 20 minutes.
Wow.
And then just like practicing my breath work, which is just a really simple breathing exercise that I do. And then I would read something that's very inspirational. It is a spiritual book or something that, lands in my lap that day, or I find.
And does this happen right before bed?
Yes.
Like in the hour before bed?
Just yes. Maybe I start doing that as soon as we start walking through the doors. That's
really?
slowly, yes. I have a designated area where I,
Nice.
practice.
It's kind of your spiritual corner.
My spiritual corner, my
Cool.
sheepskin.
Uh-huh.
This is something
I
that
love me corner.
me corner.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to have a me corner.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
really, really important.
Absolutely.
Magic happens in those me corners. I would just say really simplicity is the key. Simplifying your life as much as possible.
Right.
And take away
Slowing
what
down.
doesn't need. Yeah,
Right.
definitely. Maybe get rid of some toxic people in your life and simplify it. Do what pleases you, what makes you happy. That's also just a
Which
key.
changes as you go down this road.
It does.
So,
it really does.
I feel like we could,
We can go
literally,
on forever.
yeah, we could probably schedule like 4 more podcasts and never be out of material. But thank you so much for doing this first one. Hopefully
Thank
there'll
you.
be more.
Definitely.
I really appreciate your openness, and you're willing to share things that maybe perhaps you haven't shared before.
No,
Your story is pretty amazing and inspirational.
thank you.
I really appreciate you just letting it out.
Thank you so much. This is also part of healing for me, and I'm so grateful to be here with you and share this moment, and also share with the rest of the world and your listeners. And I'm here. So I just want to offer, people to come to Human Garage and
How do they find you? Like, I know Human Garage, and we'll put all the links in the show notes.
right.
But I also want to link. Are you a Twitter person, or do you follow social media at all?
Not as much.
Okay.
I do have Instagram and Facebook, but I kind of limit my my access to it just
Yeah, I do
because.
too, actually, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really more in face to face. I will be teaching classes. I think that's the beginning of our journey. Thursdays 6:30.
Okay.
We're gonna be at the garage, but we will be publishing, that on our website as well. So the best way is really to get
to go to Human Garage. And if somebody tags you on Instagram, don't expect an instantaneous response.
Yeah, because I'm really trying to limit myself
Yeah.
from that. I just feel like a lot of energy goes to it.
Yep.
So I want authenticity, to share with people more, and I'm finding now less and less with Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm losing actually connection with my friends. I don't see what my friends are doing, but so definitely, face to face. I think Instagram is a great great place to reach out. And definitely I'll get back to everyone.
Okay.
Yes, but come to Human Garage and join us, and I'm there. You can just request time with me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, so much. It was a pleasure.